Today we begin Holy Week. For this reason, today is called both Palm as well as Passion Sunday. We began Mass, therefore, with our Lord's triumphal entry, and a gospel relating that, his entry into Jerusalem. But his passion, his agony and death upon the cross, as our gospel of the day points out, is really the end in view. Our first lesson from Isaiah sets before us, therefore, the prophetic foretelling of our Lord's ordeal and his resolve in relationship to it. He set his face like flint, Isaiah prophesies. And in today's second lesson, the Apostle Paul has given us a panorama of the fulfillment of this prophecy in the incarnation of our Lord. The central verb in this reading is a kenosin in the phrase, he emptied himself. And although central, this must not be misunderstood. He emptied himself of his riches, that is, of his glory, but he did not divest himself of his divinity, which would be impossible. In other words, the child born of the Blessed Virgin Mary was very God of one substance with the Father, and also took upon himself his human nature from Mary, his mother, so that in the one divine person of Jesus of Nazareth, there was the divine nature and the human nature in all that he went through, involved both his humanity and his divinity. With the words, he humbled himself, becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. This self-emptying is set before our gaze precisely in our Lord's suffering and his crucifixion, the necessary price of our redemption. In this we see the true nature of his sacrifice, and his words from the cross reflect this as light refracted through a prism. They have become so familiar to us that their extraordinary nature goes oft-times unnoticed. But it did not go unnoticed by the Roman soldiers who had nailed him to that cross, or to his Blessed Mother and his beloved disciple who witnessed his death at the foot of the cross, although others were at a distance. The executioners on that day did indeed expect him to speak, to cry out. Who wouldn't, being nailed to the cross? To cry out as everyone who suffered such a fate did, apparently. But they did not hear what they expected. Seneca, a Roman philosopher, statesman, and contemporary of our Lord, recorded that those who were crucified would cry out and curse the day of their birth because of the excruciating pain. They would curse their executioners. They would curse their mothers who gave them birth. And even at times they would spit on those who looked upon them. This is not what Jesus did. Jesus said things such as, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." And they heard those words. Also to one of the two revolutionaries crucified alongside him, although they both began their time with him in ridicule, yet one of them, before the time is up, recognizes who he is and his great need in relationship to what he's doing. And he says, finally, "Jesus, remember me. Remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus in reply says, "Today, you'll be with me in paradise." And then finally, about the 9th hour, that is 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there having been 3 hours of blackness upon the face of the earth, as the gospel teaches us, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" And this was no random cry of the human heart. It was a deliberate quotation from today's psalm, Psalm 22, well known by every Jewish man, woman, and child who attended synagogue. It was known to be a prophetic, messianic psalm, the psalm of the suffering servant. And Jesus, in saying this from the cross at that moment, is thereby proclaiming to all the world, "I am He. It is fulfilled. It is accomplished." If we are attentive, then, to our Lord's crucifixion, we see the uncompromising demands of divine justice and their ironclad relationship to the terrible price He paid upon the cross for the sin of the world, which includes your sin and mine. But more important than this, as important as it is, in the cross of Christ we see the demonstration of the depths of the divine humility through which we behold, however dimly, the height, breadth, and depth of God's amazing love and mercy for you and for me. Not a love or mercy, therefore, that compromises God's justice. There can be no such. But a justice which is in harmony with His mercy and His love. But how is such a thing feasible? How are such irreconcilable contraries to be reconciled? How is this possible? And the answer is in that which we celebrate today, in that which we behold. For in the Passion, the crucifixion of Christ, through the propitiation of His blood, God has demonstrated His righteous judgment, His justice, that He might be just and at the same time, in mercy and in His love, His justice having been satisfied, the justifier of those who have faith in Jesus. That's how it is accomplished. Therefore, beginning with today, with our Lord's triumphal entry, the Church invites you and me to embrace by faith Him, and in Him, the most amazing concurrence of events that has ever taken place in the universe, in the liturgies of Holy Week, inclusive of Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Easter Sunday. For in doing so, we embrace not simply a memory, a recollection of things past. Rather, we ourselves are embraced through the commemoration of and participation in these events by the depths of the divine humility. We are embraced as though God threw His arms around us in Jesus, who in His work of divine love, mercy, and grace is made upon that cross for us wisdom and righteousness and sanctification, who in the cross and by the cross is our definitive redemption. And let no one deceive you. There is no other. There is no other name given among men whereby we must be saved. Absolutely zilch, none. Not for me, not for you, not for your children, not for your children's children, not for the whole world. Behold in this, then, the glorious good news of the gospel, which is universal in its application of our Lord Jesus Christ. Behold in this that exclusivity, very politically incorrect word these days, that exclusivity which alone is inclusive of all who put their faith in Him and His saving work upon the cross, from every tribe, every tongue, every kindred. To my heart and mind, few things capture the beauty of this glorious gospel of Christ crucified than Dr. Seton's colloquy entitled "Pierced by the Passion," in which he imagines a dialogue between the soul who has just heard the Passion read to it and our Lord. The soul questions and our Lord answers. Dr. Seton was an English divine of the 16th century and a Roman Catholic. Lord, wherefore didst thou suffer thyself to be sold, that I might deliver thee from servitude? Wherefore didst thou sweat blood, to wash away the spots of thy sin? Why wouldst thou be bound, to loose the bands of thy sin? Why wert thou denied of Peter, to confess thee before my Father? Why wouldst thou be accused, to absolve thee? Why wouldst thou be spitted upon, to wipe away thy foulness? Why wouldst thou be whipped, that thou mightest be freed from stripes? Why wouldst thou be lifted up upon the cross, that thou mightest be lifted up to heaven? Why were thine arms stretched out, to embrace thee, O fainting soul? And why was thy side opened, to receive thee in? Why didst thou die amidst two thieves, that thou mightest live in the midst of angels? On this Passion Sunday, then, receive his precious body and blood, soul and divinity, from the holy sacrifice of the cross of Christ, in, by, and through the holy sacrifice of the Mass, singing in your heart, we adore thee, O Christ, and we bless thee, because by thy holy cross thou hast redeemed the world. Indeed, by thy holy cross thou hast redeemed me. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
All who see me scoff at me. They mock me with parted lips, they wag their heads. He relied on the Lord, let him deliver him. Let him rescue him if he loves.